Good morning, everyone. So this week we've got something a little bit more scientific for you. So we're going to be heading out with a selection of my Teague Chokes. We're going to shoot some pattern plates, we're going to shoot a couple of targets, and we're going to try and find out which is best for shooting sporting clays. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to shoot 5 different chokes at the same distance with the same cartridge at a pattern plate. So in my Teagues, I have got quarter, 3/8, half, 5/8 and 3/4. I'm going to be using some good old sporting 100, 7.5, 28 gram. Hull have been kind enough to hit me up with a couple of their pattern boards, so we're going to be shooting them. I am going to set it up at about 25 yards, going to keep the same distance, and I'm going to be putting it through trusty new Caesar. I'm going to try and keep everything the same throughout the test, and then once we've done this, I'm going to head out and shoot a couple of targets. So I've set the pattern plate up at 30. I had to look at the distance. 25 is a bit close. I've put the phone out there to record. I'm going to try my best not to shoot it. So I'm going to start with the quarter choke. I'm going to go with that first, and then obviously we'll work our way up and see how we get on. So I decided the best thing to do was come back to the shop and mark the boards up with a bit of felt tip pen, just so it picked it up on the camera a little bit better for you guys at home. So as I said, we started with the quarter, and unfortunately I absolutely pulled it. I didn't realise my Caesar shot quite so high. So some of the pattern unfortunately is off the top of the sheet. As you can see, fairly dense through the centre, good even spread, obviously nice and open. Obviously quarter is a really good staple for most things. Can't really say much more. So on to my choke of choice. So this is the sheet for the 3/8. As you can see, definitely denser through the middle of the pattern. I did manage to get it central this time, and there's not too many gaps on there. There's not really any clays that are going to be able to break through that. But as I said, this seems to be my choke of choice at the moment. So on to the half. As you can see, much tighter pattern. I always used to shoot half and half for absolutely everything, be it game, clays, vermin. It was always, well, it was my first Teague choke. I don't know why I don't stick to it and don't go back to it. Like I said, I don't think you can see much difference between the quarter and the 3/8, but you can definitely see a difference here in the density of the pattern. So moving on to my newest choke, which is the 5/8. So again, thank you to Ivan for sending them out to me. Really nice pattern on this one. I did start with this at the Masters last weekend, and after I think it was before we went on to stand 4, I did open them up onto the 3/8 because everything was quite close in. As you can see, obviously 30 paces, everything is on the sheet, really nice tight pattern. It's just a good choke if you've got something that is a little bit further away. And finally, onto that 3/4. So the guys at Teague very kindly sent me these out for when I went and shot Diffie Falls. I did pattern these with the 34 gram 4s just to see what they were like, and it seemed to throw the best pan. As you can see here, really tight, really, really dense. The only problem you've got here is you've got to be that little bit more accurate, but anything that ends up in that pattern is going to get absolutely destroyed. Now, I did have a period when I first got these of shooting the 3/4. I'm not sure why. I felt like obviously my brakes were really, really good, so it gave me some confidence. However, obviously you're making things that little bit harder for yourself. You've got to be more accurate. Obviously at distance, yes, okay, it's going to hold the pattern together for longer, but as we're well aware, it's not very often that you're going to get something like 70, 80 yards out edge on where you're going to need something like this. But it does throw that perfect pattern. So, now that we've looked at the paper, let's head out and shoot some targets. So for the second part of our test, we have come out to Cocket Farm. I'm going to shoot the FITAS behind me. We are going to try and replicate what we've already done, but there are some variables, which is mainly human error. So I'm going to shoot the same target, which is a nice little 25-yard belly up looper with the same cartridges through the same gun, again, through all 5 different chokes. As I said, obviously there is some room for human error, so we've got to take that into consideration. We're going to do our absolute best to replicate each shot, to try and see if actually what we've seen on the paper replicates out here. So changing the chokes throughout the day, or whether you can get away with shooting just one choke throughout the whole competition or practice that you're shooting. So I think what I've proved there, if I'm right, is the difference between quarter to half wasn't much different. But once we got tighter up onto the 5/8 and the 3/4, as you saw with that last shot, absolutely mullered that target and just smoked it. I have a bit of a theory though on this, and that is, I went through this. So when Teague's very kindly sent me the 3/4 out, as I've already said, I decided that I needed them because the quality of the brakes like that just absolutely switched everything off. When we shot the Essex Masters, I started with 5/8, and after the third stand, we dropped down to the 3/8 choke, which gave me a little bit more pattern because everything was quite close in. However, we got to the last stand on stand 12, stand 13, sorry, the big long left to right crosser, chain cartridge, dropped some of these 6.5 bombs in, and it absolutely annihilated it. My theory is obviously, why would you over choke yourself and make things harder if you are able to get the same results? And a break is a break. It doesn't matter whether it's a chip or a ball of smoke. A break is a break. But giving yourself more room for error, I think, is the best option. So what I'm going to try and do now, try very hard, is prove to you that with a 3/8 choke, you can still break a 50, 60 yard crosser. So off the Seabird, on the tower, they've got a nice belly up, big long looper. We practiced this yesterday actually, so I've cheated a little bit and walked away back and shot it. And I think I got about 15, 20 paces off the centre stand and still broke it with these. So I'm going to try really, really hard and replicate that now, just to show you that something like 3/8 choke is absolutely suitable for everything that you're probably going to come up with in a competition situation. I appreciate that probably wasn't the cleanest break in the world. However, as I've said, a break is a break and it doesn't matter. And giving yourself the optimal amount of pattern by changing your shell rather than changing your choke, I think is probably a way forward. And I do see a lot of people doing that now. They have a set choke like I do now, which is 3/8, 3/8, and I will normally carry an 8 and then a 6.5 in the bag, and that does me for pretty much everything I'm going to shoot at. I mean, it's not very often that you're going to get a target like that at 50 yards out in the distance. Everything now fashion wise seems to be quite close in, but it does just prove that with the right choke, the right shells, it's all doable. So on that note, a huge thank you to Ivan at Teague Chokes, who supplied me with all of these titaniums. I mean, it's been really interesting to play around with them and see which one I prefer. But to be honest, for me, 3/8, 3/8 all day long will do everything you need it to. I'd like to take the chance to say a huge thank you to all of our subscribers and viewers, as well as all of our sponsors. None of this would be possible without all of your support. Thank you.